Imagine building a multi-billion-dollar empire from basically nothing, becoming the shining symbol of the American dream. Now, imagine watching all of that just turn to dust. This isn't some movie plot. It's the absolutely shocking, true story of Forever 21. So let's put a number on this. Just a handful of years ago, back in 2015, the founders of Forever 21, Do-won and Jin-suk Chang, were worth nearly $6 billion. Just let that sink in. A fortune built from the ground up, making them one of the richest families in America. And then this. A few short years later, the entire company was sold for just $81 million. So how in the world does a nearly $6 billion fortune just vanish? That's the billion-dollar question we're going to unravel today. Now, if you grew up in the 2000s or 2010s, you know this feeling. You remember those bright yellow bags, right? The music just pounding in your ears, the endless racks of cheap, trendy clothes, and yeah, that little Bible verse, John 3:16, printed on the bottom of every single bag. It wasn't just a store, it was a cultural experience. But to really get how it all fell apart, we have to go back to the beginning. We have to start with the incredible rise. And it all starts with a dream. $11,000 and an unbelievable amount of pure grit. So picture this. It's 1981. Do-won and Jin-suk Chang land in Los Angeles from South Korea with next to nothing. They've got 11 grand in savings, they barely speak English, and they don't have college degrees. Talk about starting from zero. No safety net, nothing. The first few years were just a relentless hustle. Do-won was working 3 jobs, dishwasher, gas station attendant, janitor, clocking in almost 19-hour days. And then, at a gas station of all places, he has this light bulb moment. He notices the guys driving the nicest cars are all in the fashion business. So after 3 grueling years of saving every single penny, they risked it all. They bet everything on one small storefront. And boy, did that bet pay off, big time. They were about to stumble upon a formula that would change retail forever, what we now call fast fashion. They were about to build an empire. The growth was just explosive. They started in 1984 with this tiny 900-square-foot shop they called Fashion 21. In its very first year, that little shop did $700,000 in sales. Wild! And that tiny seed would eventually grow into these colossal flagship stores, one of them sprawling over 162,000 square feet. It's insane. So what was their secret sauce? Well, their strategy was brilliant and aggressive. First, they poured every single dollar of profit right back into the business. No vacations, no fancy cars. They also had this genius real estate strategy, scooping up these massive, cheap spaces left behind by bankrupt department stores. And crucially, they kept absolute family control, no outside investors. This allowed them to open a new store every 6 months. But here's the twist. The very thing that made them so unstoppable, that absolute iron-fisted control, was about to become their biggest weakness. It was creating these huge cracks in the foundation of their empire. And just look at how tight that control was. The Chang family owned 99% of the company. 99%. No outside shareholders, no going public, absolutely no one to answer to or question their decisions. They basically built a fortress around themselves. The problem with a fortress, though, is that you're totally isolated. And that isolation came at a huge cost. They were slammed with over 50 lawsuits for ripping off other designers. They got into hot water with labor violation scandals. Even their own daughters, Linda and Esther, who were supposed to take over, were given fancy titles but had no real power. And maybe most importantly, they flat out refused to create a board of directors, shutting out any and all outside advice. A business professor, Eric Gordon, really just nailed it when he said this. You can remain in your self-created bubble for a long time, but eventually that bubble bursts. The Changs truly believed they always knew best, and their bubble, well, it was about to burst in a very big way. And when it finally did burst, it happened so fast. A whole series of disastrous decisions, all driven by that same insulated, we-know-best mindset, led to this rapid and totally catastrophic unraveling. Get a load of these numbers. Their big push into international markets was a complete financial black hole. The company was bleeding $100 million a year from those stores. $100 million. And it just got worse, speeding up to $10 million lost every single month. They just had no clue how to operate in foreign markets. And here's the biggest irony of all. Forever 21, one of the pioneers of fast fashion, had become too slow. Can you believe it? Competitors like H&M could get a new design from an idea to a store rack in just 7 weeks. It was taking Forever 21 20 weeks. In this business, being 13 weeks behind is basically a death sentence. But you know what's truly mind-boggling? They were warned. They paid millions of dollars to the best consulting firms in the world, Bain, McKinsey, BCG, for advice. And what did they do? They ignored almost all of it. Bain says stop expanding in Europe. So they opened 23 more stores there. McKinsey says you have to fix your inventory systems. They barely touch them. It was pure hubris. And so the inevitable happened. We're now at the final chapter, where this multi-billion-dollar empire, built over decades of hard work, basically turns to dust in a matter of months. The end came so fast. It was breathtaking. They filed for bankruptcy in September 2019. Just 5 months later, it's sold for pennies on the dollar, and the family loses all control. A last-ditch, desperate partnership with their rival Shein completely fails, and that triggers the final liquidation. Every single U.S. store was gone in just 106 days. So let's just go back to those numbers one last time. That 99% stake, once worth almost $6 billion, was now worth nothing. The family's personal fortune completely wiped out. It's just a catastrophic destruction of wealth. So what's the real lesson here? It's kind of poetic, in a tragic way. Du Wanchong built his entire empire because he noticed something at a gas station that nobody else did. But he lost that same empire because he stopped noticing everything else, especially the warning signs that went against what he already believed to be true. Which leaves us with this one big, fascinating question to chew on. Was this collapse just inevitable once the founders refused to let go? Or could a different style of leadership, one that was maybe a little more open, have actually saved the very empire they worked so incredibly hard to build?